The clock in the harborside mansion struck 2 a.m., its chimes swallowed by the roaring engine of a black Mercedes-Benz that shattered the stillness of Double Bay. Scarlett Bennett's heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drum against the silence. She knew that sound, that dreaded, familiar routine. The unsteady footsteps of Lachlan Harrison echoed up the marble hallway. The crash of a glass bottle against the polished floor below made her wince, the sound a chilling premonition. Scarlett pulled the silk sheets tighter, her eyes squeezed shut, silently begging for tonight to be different. "Scarlett, where the hell are you, you useless woman?" Lachlan's slurred shout sliced through the air, his voice thick with a cocktail of alcohol and contempt. At 22, Scarlett was heiress to a vast textile fortune, yet her natural beauty had become a cage. Her wavy brown hair spilled over her trembling shoulders as the bedroom door was kicked open. Lachlan, a 42-year-old construction and hotel tycoon, stumbled into the room, his eyes bloodshot, his $3,000 suit wrinkled and reeking of whiskey and cheap perfume. "Who were you with today?" he demanded, lurching towards the bed. "Lachlan, please, I was home all day. You can ask Margaret, the housekeeper," Scarlett whispered, her voice barely audible. "Liar," he roared. With a vicious tug, he yanked her from the bed, sending her sprawling onto the cold marble floor. The silk nightgown tore. A sharp pain bloomed in her ribs, then another in her back. She cried out, but knew it was useless. The staff had learned to turn a deaf ear, and the house was a fortress. "You're mine, you hear me? Mine! And if you ever try to leave me—" He didn't finish the threat. A final kick. Then he collapsed onto the velvet sofa, passing out. Scarlett crawled to the bathroom, trembling. In the mirror, she saw the bruises already darkening her delicate face. With shaking hands, she applied a thick layer of foundation to hide the marks. She would have to invent another excuse for her family tomorrow. At dawn, Lachlan woke as if nothing had happened. He straightened his tie, smoothed his dark hair, and kissed her cheek. "Got a meeting with the Japanese investors. Don't wait up." He said it like a perfectly normal husband, leaving her alone with the echoing silence of the house and her silent tears. But what he didn't know was that on that same morning, her younger sister, Ellie Bennett, had called 5 times without an answer, and for the first time in months, decided to show up at the mansion unannounced. Ellie stepped out of her red Honda Civic in front of the imposing gray stone house that stood like a fortress in Vaucluse, her heels clicking against the pavement as she made her way to the front door, a bag of muffins from their favorite bakery clutched in her hand. At 24, Ellie was a psychologist, the family rebel who questioned tradition and refused to marry for social convenience. For that reason, she had never fully trusted Lachlan. "Morning, Miss Ellie," greeted Margaret, the 60-year-old housekeeper who had been with their family since the girls were children. But something was off. Margaret avoided her gaze, her hands trembling as she wiped an already spotless surface. "Is Scarlett here? I wanted to surprise her." Ellie smiled, noting the uncomfortable silence that hung in the marble hallways. "The missus is resting upstairs. She's been having terrible headaches lately," Margaret murmured, lowering her voice. Ellie took the sweeping staircase to the second floor. Family portraits watched from their gilded frames. Her father, Robert Bennett, founder of the Bennett textiles empire. Her mother, Elaine, who had passed away 5 years ago, and a wedding photo of Scarlett and Lachlan, beaming under a shower of rose petals. Ellie tapped gently on the master bedroom door. "Scarlett, it's me. Can I come in?" A long silence, then slow footsteps and the click of the lock. When Scarlett opened the door, Ellie had to stifle a gasp. Her sister was wearing dark sunglasses indoors, and a silk scarf was wrapped around her neck despite the Sydney heat. "Ellie, what a surprise," Scarlett said, her voice hoarse, attempting a smile. "Scarlett, what happened to your face?" Ellie asked, horrified. I fell down the stairs last night. Silly, isn't it?" Unconsciously, Scarlett touched her cheek. "Lachlan says I need to be more careful." But Ellie had studied psychology for 6 years. She knew the signs, the defensive posture, the elaborate excuses, the gradual isolation from family, and she knew her sister better than anyone. "Scarlett, take off the sunglasses, please." "No, Ellie. My eyes are swollen from allergies and take them off now." The authority in Ellie's voice made Scarlett obey automatically, just like when they were kids. Scarlett's left eye was completely swollen shut, ringed with bruises from black to violet. Her bottom lip had a fresh cut she'd tried to hide with gloss. "Oh my God, Scarlett," Ellie whispered, tears streaming down her face. "It was Lachlan." Scarlett sank onto the bed, burying her face in her hands. "You don't understand, Ellie. It's not that simple. Lachlan has so much pressure with his business, problems with foreign investors. Sometimes the alcohol takes over and—" "Don't give me excuses," Ellie exploded, kneeling in front of her sister. "How long has this been going on?" Scarlett was silent for a long moment. Outside, the mansion's manicured garden stretched out, perfect and green, with imported roses and a marble fountain that cost more than an average house. "Since the first year," she finally whispered. At first, it was just pushing when he drank too much. Then it got worse. Ellie felt the world crumble. For 3 years, she had shared dinners with them, seen Lachlan kiss Scarlett's forehead, heard their plans for kids and traveling. It had all been a perfectly constructed lie. "Scarlett, you have to report him. We're going to the police station right now." "No!" Scarlett cried, clinging to her sister's arm. "You can't. Lachlan has contacts everywhere. Judges, police, politicians. If I report him, he'll destroy me. He'll destroy our whole family." "And what do you prefer, that he kills you?" Scarlett looked at her hands, where the 5-carat diamond engagement ring sparkled like a cruel joke. "Sometimes I think that would be better." At that moment, a car engine roared at the gate. Lachlan was back. Ellie heard furious footsteps on the stairs. "Scarlett, who the hell is here?" Lachlan's enraged voice bellowed from the hall. He appeared in the doorway, still in his business suit, a half-empty bottle of tequila in his hand. "So, the little sister came to visit," he sneered. "Did you tell her all our little family secrets, darling?" And then Ellie understood. She hadn't just discovered the truth. She had put her sister in the greatest danger of her life. The silence in the room became thick and heavy. Lachlan closed the door behind him with a chilling click that sounded like a death sentence. "Lachlan, my sister just came to visit. We weren't talking about anything important," Scarlett lied, instinctively stepping between him and Ellie. He took a long swig of tequila without taking his dark eyes off the two women. His smile was that of a predator who had cornered his prey. "Nothing important?" he repeated, savoring each word. "Then explain why my darling sister-in-law has that look of horror on her face, as if she's seen a ghost." Ellie gathered all her courage. She had dealt with difficult cases, helped women in similar situations, but never imagined her own sister would be one of them. "Lachlan, I think it is best if I leave. Scarlett needs to rest and—" "Don't you move," he ordered, his voice dropping to a dangerously soft tone. "No one leaves until I say so." Scarlett began to visibly shake. She knew that voice, that posture. It was the calm before the storm. "Please, Lachlan, Ellie has nothing to do with this. Let her go and talk to me." He strode over to Scarlett and, without warning, grabbed her face with one hand, squeezing hard enough to leave marks. "Talk? Like we talked last night?" His breath reeked of alcohol and contained rage. Or like you talked to your little sister about our private business." Ellie couldn't hold back any longer. "Let her go! What kind of man are you? This is domestic violence and it's a crime." Lachlan let out a blood-curdling laugh. "Domestic violence? Oh, you cheap psychologist. Is that what you learned at your little university?" He turned to her, eyes full of contempt. "I don't exercise violence. I exercise discipline over what's mine. Scarlett is not your property." Lachlan pulled out his phone and dialed a number. "Detective Miller? Lachlan Harrison here. Yeah, the one who sponsors your special operations. I've got a little problem at home. Someone's disturbing the peace and threatening my wife." Ellie felt her blood run cold. Lachlan truly had the power he boasted about. No need to come. Just wanted you to know that if anyone comes up with strange stories about my family, you know who's behind the lies, right? Thanks, Detective." He hung up and put his phone away with calculated calm. "See, Ellie, in this country, money speaks louder than your degrees. You can go report me wherever you want. I assure you my version will be the only one that matters." Scarlett sank into a chair, defeated. She had lost all hope. "Now," Lachlan continued, moving dangerously close to Ellie, "you're going to leave my house. You're going to forget everything you think you saw here, and you're not going to stick your nose in my marriage again. Is that clear?" "I'm not leaving my sister," Ellie declared, though her voice trembled. Lachlan smiled cruelly and walked to the balcony overlooking the garden. The mansion sat on 1.5 acres, surrounded by high walls and security cameras he controlled. "You know what's beautiful about living on such a big private property?" he said, gazing at the garden. "Accidents can happen, and no one finds out until it's too late." Ellie understood the implicit threat. He wasn't just threatening Scarlett. He was threatening her too. "Scarlett, let's get out of here, right now," she told her sister. "I have savings. We can go to our Aunt Elaine's place in Brisbane." "No!" Scarlett screamed. "Don't you get it? If we run, he'll find us. He has contacts all over the country. And when he finds us—" She didn't finish the sentence, but they all knew how that story ended. Lachlan returned from the window and poured himself another drink, completely relaxed now that he had established his dominance. "Scarlett, my love, see your sister to the door." Ellie looked her in the eyes. "I hope this is the last time we have this awkward conversation." Ellie hugged her sister, whispering in her ear, "I'm not leaving you alone. I'll find a way to help you. I promise." As they walked down the stairs, Scarlett squeezed her hand desperately. "Ellie, please. If you really love me, stay out of this. Lachlan is capable of things you can't imagine." Last week, a journalist who was investigating his business turned up dead in the Whitsundays. They said it was an accident. Ellie froze. "Scarlett, are you telling me that Lachlan is capable of—" "I'm telling you, there is no limit to what he'll do when he feels threatened." They reached the front door. Margaret stood there, her face pale. She had heard the shouting. In her eyes, Ellie saw years of forced silence and accumulated fear. "Look after my sister," Ellie whispered to the housekeeper. "Miss, I want to, but if Mr. Harrison finds out—" Ellie understood that Margaret was also a prisoner in that house. As she got into her car, she looked up at the second-floor window. Lachlan was there, watching her with that sinister smile. He gave her a wave, as if they'd just had a nice afternoon tea. But what Lachlan didn't know was that Ellie had recorded their entire conversation on her phone and had also taken discreet photos of Scarlett's bruises. As she drove back towards the city, her mind seized. She had to find a way to help her sister without putting her in greater danger. She knew lawyers specializing in domestic violence, investigative journalists, human rights organizations. But first, she needed a plan that was smarter than Lachlan Harrison's power. What she didn't know was that on that same night, Lachlan would cross a line from which there would be no return. Midnight fell over the Vaucluse mansion like a storm cloud. Scarlett lay in the bed, pretending to sleep, listening to Lachlan on the phone in his study. His voice, though muffled, was filled with rage and something more dangerous. Paranoia. "I don't care what it costs, Mr. Smith. I want you to investigate my wife's sister, Ellie Bennett. Where does she work? Who does she see? What are her weaknesses?" he said, pacing like a caged lion. "And I want the information by noon tomorrow." Scarlett squeezed her eyes shut. Her little sister, the only person who truly loved her, was now in danger because of her. She instinctively touched the pearl necklace hiding the purple marks on her neck, a memory of the last time she'd tried to defend herself. Lachlan hung up and came upstairs, his footsteps heavy. He had drunk less tonight, which paradoxically made him more dangerous. When he was drunk, his attacks were impulsive. Sober, he was calculating and methodical. "Scarlett, I know you're awake," he said, entering the bedroom and loosening his Italian tie. She didn't answer, keeping her eyes closed and her breathing even. "Your little sister caused me a lot of trouble today," he continued, sitting on the edge of the bed. "And you know I don't like it when people cause me trouble." His cold fingers caressed her face, tracing the bruises that hadn't fully healed. "Open your eyes, my love. We have to talk about the future of our family." Scarlett had no choice but to obey. In the dim light, Lachlan looked like a stranger. There was nothing left of the charming man who had won her over at that gala. "What do you want?" she whispered. "I want you to understand that what happened today can never happen again." Never. His voice was dangerously soft. "Your sister stuck her nose in, and now I have to take measures to protect our privacy. Lachlan, Ellie won't tell anyone. I promise." "No!" he yelled, jumping up. "I no longer trust the promises of women in your family. Your sister has a big mouth and a tiny brain." He went to the closet and began pulling out Italian leather suitcases. "What are you doing?" Scarlett asked, sitting up. "We're leaving the city for a while. I have a property in the rainforest that no one knows about. We'll be safe there until things calm down." "Safe from what? From my sister?" Lachlan stopped, a cruel smile forming on his face. "Your sister recorded our conversation today. My security team detected the app on her phone when they reviewed the house cameras." Scarlett felt the world drop from beneath her feet. Ellie had tried to help her, but unknowingly had signed her own death warrant. "Lachlan, please, Ellie is innocent. She doesn't know what she's getting into." "Exactly, and that's why she's dangerous," he continued, packing with mechanical movements. "Innocent people do stupid things, like going to the media or human rights organizations." "What are you going to do to her?" Lachlan approached her and grabbed her face with one hand, his fingers digging into her bruised cheeks. "Don't ask me questions you don't want the answers to, my love." Scarlett realized with horror that Lachlan was planning something terrible, not just for Ellie, but for her too. The trip to the rainforest wasn't a holiday, it was a kidnapping. "I'm not going anywhere with you," she declared, summoning a courage she didn't know she still had. Lachlan's hand closed around her throat like a vice. "Yes, you are. Because if you don't do it the easy way, I'll have to use other methods of persuasion, and this time, it won't just be on you." "What do you mean?" "Your darling dad, Robert, is 75. A man his age can have a heart attack at any moment, especially if he gets some shocking news about his favorite daughter." Lachlan had found the perfect way to control her, threatening her entire family. "You're a monster," she said, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I'm a man who protects his investments, and you, dear wife, are my most important one. Your family's contacts, your name, your public image. It all cost me 3 years of a fake marriage." "Fake?" Lachlan let out a bitter laugh. Did you really think I fell in love with you? You're beautiful, yes, but there are thousands of beautiful women. What I was interested in was your family's textile empire and your father's political connections. The truth hit Scarlett like an avalanche. Everything had been a lie. The gifts, the declarations of love, the plans for the future. It had all been part of a master plan to seize her family's fortune. Now pack your bags. We're leaving at dawn, Lachlan ordered. And don't even think about escaping or contacting anyone. My men will be watching your every move. When Lachlan left the room, Scarlett collapsed onto the cold marble floor. For the first time in 3 years, she cried uncontrollably. Not just for herself, but for having dragged Ellie into this hell. But what she didn't know was that Margaret, the housekeeper, had heard the whole conversation, and that for the first time in her 60 years, she had made a decision that would change everyone's destiny. While Lachlan slept, aided by the pills Margaret had discreetly crushed into his last whiskey, the housekeeper dialed a number on the kitchen phone. "Miss Ellie, it's Margaret. You need to come get your sister right now, but bring the police and lots of witnesses." The war had begun, and this time, Lachlan Harrison had underestimated the power of women united against injustice. Ellie's phone vibrated at 4 a.m. She had been reviewing the recording for the 10th time. "Margaret? What's going on?" she whispered, her heart racing. "Miss, I don't have much time. Mr. Harrison is planning to take Mrs. Scarlett to a property in the rainforest at dawn. He says he's going to disappear for a while until you stop being a problem." Ellie sat up in bed, wide awake. "What do you mean, stop being a problem?" "I heard him on the phone, miss. He mentioned your name many times, and it didn't sound like he wanted to invite you to dinner." Fear shot down Ellie's spine, but with it came something more powerful. A fierce determination not to let this monster destroy her family. "Margaret, can you keep Lachlan sedated until I get there with help?" "I already gave him pills in his whiskey. He's sleeping like a log, but I don't know for how long. I need you to do something very important. Open all the doors, but make it look normal. And if you have keys to Lachlan's study, go in and take photos of any documents you find." "Miss, if he finds out..." "Margaret, you've spent 20 years taking care of my family. Now let me take care of you. Trust me." Ellie hung up and immediately dialed the number of her best friend from university, Gemma Thompson, now a prosecutor specializing in domestic violence. "Gemma, it's Ellie. I need your help, urgently." "Ellie, do you know what time it is? My sister is in mortal danger. Her husband has kidnapped her and is planning to take her out of the city this morning." Gemma, now fully awake, switched to professional mode. "Do you have evidence?" "I have recordings, photos of the beatings, and a witness ready to testify." "Give me the address. I'm coming with a specialized unit. But, Ellie, you need to know that if this is the Lachlan Harrison I think it is, this is going to be complicated. That man has contacts all the way up to Parliament. I don't care if he has contacts with the Prime Minister. I'm not going to let him kill my sister." While Gemma organized the operation, Ellie called her contact at the Herald, investigative journalist Marcus Smith, who had been following the shady dealings of several powerful business figures. "Marcus, it's Ellie Bennett. Remember you said if I ever had information about high-level corruption, to call you?" "Of course. What have you got?" "Lachlan Harrison, domestic violence, death threats, possible murder of a journalist, and corruption of public officials." There was a silence on the other end of the line. "Ellie, are you completely sure of what you're telling me? Harrison can destroy entire careers." "I'm sure. And if we don't act now, he's going to kill my sister. Give me an hour. I'm coming with a camera crew and a lawyer. If we're going to do this, we're doing it right." At 5:30 a.m., a silent convoy made its way towards Vaucluse. 2 specialized police cars, a news van with the camera crew, and Ellie's red Honda Civic. Gemma rode in the first car, reviewing legal procedures with her team. Remember, we need solid evidence of domestic violence to justify entering without a warrant. And if we find signs of kidnapping, we can proceed with an immediate arrest. In the second car, Detective Williams, a 30-year veteran of the force, briefed his team. Lads, the suspect has important political connections. Everything has to be by the book. No mistakes. The journo's cameras are going to record our every move. Margaret was waiting at the front door, trembling but resolute. In her hands was a plastic bag with documents from Lachlan's study. Miss Ellie, Mrs. Scarlett is in the master bedroom. Her bags are packed, but she's very scared. Mr. Harrison is still asleep on the sofa in the study, but it might be the pills wearing off. Gemma took the bag of documents. What's in here? Strange contracts, bank account numbers, and threatening letters he sent to people who owed him money. I also found photos of Mrs. Scarlett beaten that he kept in a safe. Ellie felt sick. Lachlan wasn't just beating her sister. He was documenting the violence like a war trophy. Margaret, where are the keys to that safe? On the key ring he always carries. It's in the trousers he left on the study floor. Marcus started recording as the police team prepared to enter. It's 5:45 a.m. on September 27th. We're in front of the residence of businessman Lachlan Harrison, where Mrs. Scarlett Harrison is allegedly being held captive. Gemma led the team to the front door. Let's proceed with extreme caution. The victim may be in a state of traumatic shock, and the aggressor may react violently. But when they went up the stairs to the master bedroom, they found the door open and the room empty. The suitcases were gone, and on the bed was a note in Scarlett's shaky handwriting. Ellie, forgive me. Lachlan woke up and forced me to leave with him. He says if you look for me, he'll hurt Dad. Don't come for me. I love you both. Margaret brought her hands to her mouth, horrified. Impossible. I gave him enough pills to knock out a horse. Gemma examined the note with a detective's eye. This handwriting shows signs of extreme stress. It was written under duress. Ellie ran to the back window. Tire marks on the wet grass showed a vehicle had left through the service gate, avoiding the front door where Margaret stood guard. He took my sister, she whispered, tears running down her cheeks. And now we don't know where they are. But Marcus, reviewing the documents Margaret had rescued, found something that would change everything. Ellie, look at this. A contract to buy a property in Queensland, but it's not in Lachlan Harrison's name. It's in the name of a shell company called Coastal Investments. Gemma took the document. And here are $1 million bank transfers to accounts in the Cayman Islands. This isn't just domestic violence. It's large-scale money laundering. Ellie felt a spark of hope amidst the despair. Does that mean we can track him? It means we just found a way to destroy his entire criminal empire. And when a man like Lachlan Harrison is cornered, Gemma didn't finish the sentence, but everyone understood the implication. A desperate man was capable of anything. The race against time had just begun. The highway to Cairns stretched like an endless snake under the relentless Queensland sun. In the back of a black SUV with tinted windows, Scarlett watched the tropical landscape. It should have been beautiful, but now it felt like the road to her grave. Lachlan drove in silence, his knuckles white on the leather steering wheel, a silver pistol resting on the passenger seat, a constant reminder of his power. He had woken up 30 minutes earlier than planned, the effects of the pills still clouding his mind, but he was lucid enough to realize something was wrong. Margaret's not in the house, he'd said abruptly, and there are documents missing from my study. Panic had seized him. Without explanations or pleas, he had forced Scarlett into the car, taking the escape route he'd had prepared for months. Lachlan Harrison hadn't gotten to where he was without a contingency plan for every situation. Where are we going exactly? Scarlett asked, breaking the 2-hour silence. Somewhere your little sister and her police friends will never find us, he replied, speeding up. I have a completely isolated property in the rainforest, near the Daintree. It doesn't even show up on official maps. A chill ran down Scarlett's spine. Lachlan, please. You've already gotten me away from my family, but it can't be forever. People are going to ask questions. Shut up! He exploded, hitting the steering wheel. This is all your fault, and your interfering families. I gave you everything a woman could want. A house, money, social status, and this is how you repay me? Lachlan's phone began to ring. Mr. Smith appeared on the screen. What happened? He answered, his voice tense. Boss, we have problems. The police are at your house with a search warrant. They found the safe open and are confiscating all the documents. Lachlan slammed on the brakes. How did they get a warrant so fast? Your wife's sister has a prosecutor friend. They presented evidence of domestic violence and possible kidnapping. The judge authorized the operation in record time. And my contacts? Where the hell are they? Boss, this isn't just a domestic violence case anymore. They found the shell company contracts and the transfers to the Caymans. They're talking about money laundering and racketeering. Lachlan hung up and got out of the car, pacing like a caged animal. Scarlett watched him from inside, seeing his mask of absolute control finally crumble. When he got back in, his eyes held the look of a man who had lost everything. Your sister just signed her death warrant, he said with a blood-curdling calm. And yours too. Lachlan, listen. We can still fix this. You can turn me over to the authorities and negotiate. Negotiate? He laughed bitterly. Do you know how many years they'd give me for everything they found? Do you have any idea how many powerful people will want me dead before I can talk? For the first time, Scarlett saw real fear in Lachlan's eyes, and that fear made him infinitely more dangerous. Senator Evans, Premier Mendoza, half the cabinet, they all have dealings with me. If I go down, I'm taking a lot of people with me. He started the car again. That's why I can't be captured alive. What are you saying? I'm saying that when we get to the property, I'm going to call your parents. I'm going to tell them exactly where we are. And when the police arrive... He didn't finish the sentence, but Scarlett understood the suicidal plan forming in his broken mind. You're crazy. You can't involve innocent people. Lachlan backhanded her, without taking his eyes off the road. There are no innocent people in this story, dear wife. All of you betrayed me, and all of you will pay the consequences. Meanwhile, in Sydney, the operation to locate Lachlan and Scarlett had become a national manhunt. Gemma coordinated the efforts from the precinct, where the evidence found at the mansion had exposed the biggest corruption case of the decade. We have confirmation that his vehicle was detected by cameras on the Sydney-Brisbane highway at 7 a.m., reported Agent Hernandez. Average speed of 120 kilometers per hour, heading north. Ellie, who had insisted on staying at the command center, studied maps of Queensland, her desperation growing. Marcus, in your investigation on Harrison, did you find anything about properties in Queensland? The journalist checked his notes. He mentioned investments in tourism development several times, but never gave specifics. His lawyers are experts at hiding everything behind shell companies. I've got something, Gemma said, looking at the confiscated documents. Monthly payments to a private security company in the Daintree. Security services for property Daintree 7. Daintree, Agent Hernandez noted. That's a protected rainforest. Private construction isn't allowed there unless you have the right contacts in the National Parks and Wildlife Service. And knowing Harrison, he probably does, Marcus added. Ellie approached the map, pointing to the area around the Daintree. If he has a clandestine property there, it's completely isolated. No nearby towns, no main roads. It's the perfect place for... She couldn't finish the sentence. The image of her sister in the hands of a desperate, armed man was too terrible to verbalize. Gemma made the call. "I'm coordinating with the Queensland State Police. We need helicopters, specialized hostage rescue teams, and expert negotiators. This is going to end badly if we don't act with surgical precision." "What if Lachlan realizes we're tracking him?" Ellie asked. "What will he do to Scarlett?" The silence that followed was more telling than any answer. In the SUV heading into the rainforest, Lachlan checked his phone for the last time before turning it off. 53 missed calls from lawyers, business partners, and officials desperately trying to distance themselves from the scandal exploding in all the news outlets. The Harrison Empire is crumbling. Violence, corruption, and money laundering, read a headline. "Look, my love, we're famous now." Scarlett stared at her reflection in the tinted window. In 24 hours, she had gone from the silent, abused wife of a powerful businessman to the center of a national story. But that fame could cost her her life. 20 kilometers left, Lachlan announced, turning off the main road onto a dirt track that plunged into the jungle. "Hope you enjoyed the ride, because it's going to be the last one you ever take." The sun began to set behind the canopy of gum trees and bottle brush as the SUV stopped in front of a building that looked like something out of a nightmare. A 2-story house painted black, surrounded by an electrified fence and solar-powered security cameras. Lachlan had built his own bunker in the middle of nowhere, and there, in the heart of the Daintree, the final chapter of a story that began with a dream marriage and would end in national tragedy was about to be written. The black house emerged from the rainforest like a monument to power and paranoia. Lachlan had invested millions in creating a self-sufficient fortress. Silent generators, a water purification system, night vision security cameras, and an arsenal that could equip a small army. Scarlett stepped out of the vehicle on shaky legs, breathing in the humid air laden with tropical scents that, in other circumstances, she would have found beautiful. The sounds of the jungle, howler monkeys, cockatoos, the constant buzzing of insects, created a symphony that brutally contrasted with the terror in her chest. "Welcome to your new home, my love," Lachlan said sarcastically, pushing her towards the front door. "No one will hear your screams here." The interior of the house was a disturbing mix of luxury and military functionality. Italian designer furniture coexisted with security monitors, satellite communication systems, and automatic weapons hung on the walls like macabre decorations. "This is incredible, right?" Lachlan walked through the living room like a proud tour guide. "I've spent 3 years building this place. I knew I'd need it one day." "How many people know about this place?" Scarlett asked, desperately searching for any hope of rescue. "The architects died in a very convenient car accident after they finished. The builders were illegal workers from the Pacific Islands who went back home with a lot of money and strict orders to keep their mouths shut. And the only pilot who knows the exact coordinates has worked for me for 15 years. Lachlan poured himself a whiskey from a crystal bottle that cost more than an average worker's annual salary. "You know what the most beautiful thing about this place is? It's built over a natural spring. The Aboriginal people considered these places sacred, perfect for sacrifices to their gods." Scarlett felt her blood run cold. "Lachlan, please, I know you're scared. I know you feel like there's no way out, but I'm not scared!" he screamed, smashing the glass against the wall. "I'm furious. Furious, because after all I invested in you, in your family, in building a perfect life, you betrayed me with your second-rate sister." He approached her with calculated steps, a predator stalking its prey. "Do you know how much it cost me to win over your family? Years of pretending to be the perfect son-in-law, enduring endless dinners with your father talking about his textile factories, smiling while your mother told her boring stories about Sydney high society. So why did you do it? If you despised us so much, why did you marry me?" Lachlan let out a bitter laugh, for the money, obviously, but also for the challenge. Your family thought they were untouchable, that their name protected them from everything. I wanted to show them that any fortress can be conquered from the inside. As Lachlan reveled in his cruel confession, 1,500 kilometers away, the command center in Sydney was working against the clock. The specialized teams had located Lachlan's phone signal until the moment he turned it off, but the last known coordinates led them to a rainforest area that wasn't fully mapped. "We have a problem," Agent Hernandez announced. "The area where we think Harrison is located is classified as a protected reserve. Any construction there is illegal, which means it doesn't appear in any official records." Gemma studied the most recent satellite images. "Here's something. An anomaly in the vegetation, like they cut down trees to create a clearing. And these straight lines aren't natural." Marcus, who had been on the phone for the last hour, approached the group with crucial information. "I talked to a former employee of one of Harrison's construction companies. The guy is willing to talk in exchange for witness protection. He says 3 years ago, he helped build a hideaway home in a protected area near the Daintree. Does he have the exact coordinates?" "Not exact, but he remembers the route. He says from the main road, it was about 30 kilometers on dirt roads, following marks on the trees that Harrison had put there." Ellie, who had been silent, approached the map. "How long will it take for the rescue team to get there?" "By helicopter, 2 hours from Cairns," Gemma replied. "But Ellie, you need to understand this could end very badly. Harrison is cornered, armed, and based on all the psychological profiles we've put together, he's probably contemplating a murder-suicide." "Murder-suicide?" "Killing Scarlett and then himself. It's a typical pattern in domestic violence cases, when the aggressor feels there is no way out." Ellie sank into a chair, the weight of the reality crushing her. "My sister is going to die because of me. If I hadn't interfered—" "No," Marcus interrupted her. "Your sister was going to die anyway. Men like Lachlan don't change. They only get worse. At least now she has a chance to survive." In the Black House, Lachlan had moved from cruel confession to the meticulous planning of his final revenge. He had turned on all the security monitors and adjusted the cameras to get a full view of the perimeter. "You know what we're going to do now, my dear wife," he said, loading an automatic pistol with expert movements. "We're going to call your family and tell them exactly where we are." "You're crazy. Why would you do that?" "Because I want them to come. I want your sister, your father, the police, the journalists. I want everyone to come and witness the grand finale." Lachlan went to the satellite phone, the only means of communication that worked in that remote area. "When they get here, they're going to find a scene they'll never forget. Your sister will live the rest of her life knowing her meddling caused your death." "Lachlan, don't do this. If you want to kill me, do it, but don't involve more innocent people." "Innocent people?" His eyes gleamed with madness. "There are no innocent people in this story. All of you betrayed me." He dialed Ellie's number, knowing she would be surrounded by police and journalists. "Hello, my dear sister-in-law," he said when Ellie answered. "Hope you're enjoying your moment of fame." Ellie's voice trembled. "Lachlan, please let my sister go. This is between you and me." "Oh, but it's not just between you and me anymore. Now it's a national affair, isn't it? Thanks to you, I'm the most wanted criminal in the country." "We can negotiate. Tell me what you want." Lachlan looked at Scarlett, who was crying silently on the sofa. "I want you to come for your sister personally. The coordinates are—" and he gave them the exact location of the Black House, knowing he was sealing the fate of everyone involved. When he hung up, Scarlett looked at him with a mixture of horror and understanding. "You're not going to let anyone get out of here alive, are you?" Lachlan smiled, with the tranquility of a man who had finally accepted his fate. My empire is gone. My money will be confiscated. My name will be remembered as a synonym for violence and corruption. But at least I'm going to control how this story ends. Outside, the rainforest continued its nightly symphony, oblivious to the human drama unfolding in the Black House. The rescue helicopters had already taken off from Cairns, heading towards the coordinates Lachlan had provided. But what no one knew was that Lachlan had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. The Black House was not just a refuge. It was a death trap designed to take down anyone who dared to challenge him. The final battle was about to begin. The roar of the helicopter sounded like distant thunder slicing through the tropical night. It was 11:30 p.m. when 3 military aircraft flew over the Queensland rainforest, following the coordinates Lachlan had provided with sinister premeditation. In the main helicopter was Ellie, who had insisted on accompanying the rescue team despite the protests of Gemma and the commanding officers. Her intimate knowledge of Scarlett's psychology could be crucial to saving her sister's life. "Visual confirmed," the pilot reported. 2-level structure, fully lit, surrounded by a perimeter fence. No exterior movement detected. Detective Williams, leader of the elite hostage rescue team, studied the thermal images. 2 human figures on the first level, northeast sector. One is moving erratically. The other remains static. Possible hostage situation. Ellie leaned towards the screens, her heart pounding. "Can you tell which is which?" "Negative. The distance and roof interference prevent a precise identification." In the Black House, Lachlan watched the helicopters on his security monitors with a blood-curdling smile. He had placed Scarlett in a chair facing the main window, tied with steel cable and a homemade bomb attached to her chest. "See, my love, they came just like I planned," he said, caressing her face with fake tenderness. "Your sister couldn't resist the temptation to play the hero." Scarlett's mouth was gagged, but her eyes desperately pleaded with him not to hurt the people coming to rescue her. "Don't worry, they won't suffer for long." Lachlan checked the explosives he had strategically placed throughout the house. "As soon as they set foot on my property, this rainforest is going to become their cemetery." Years of paranoia and obsessive preparation had turned the house into a deadly fortress. Landmines were hidden among the vegetation. Explosive wires were placed on the windows, and there was enough dynamite to wipe out everything in a 200-meter radius. The satellite phone rang. Lachlan answered without taking his eyes off the monitors. "Detective Williams, I presume?" "Mr. Harrison, I'm the lead negotiator. We want to resolve this situation without violence. Are you willing to talk?" "Of course I am," Lachlan laughed. "But first, I want my wife's sister, Ellie, to get out of the helicopter. Alone, unarmed, with her hands up." "That's not going to happen, sir. But we can offer you security guarantees if you release Mrs. Harrison and surrender peacefully." "Security guarantees?" Lachlan looked at Scarlett. "Did you hear that, my love? They're offering me security guarantees when half the country's government wants me dead before I can testify." Lachlan hung up and went to the window. With deliberately slow movements, he activated the first level of the house's defense systems. Red lights began to flash all over the property. In the helicopter, the explosive detectors started blaring. "Landmines!" the explosives expert yelled. "The entire perimeter is mined. We can't land without a defusing team." "How long to get that team?" Gemma asked over the radio. "At least 4 hours from the nearest base." Ellie took off her headphones and turned to Detective Williams. "We don't have 4 hours. Lachlan isn't planning to negotiate. He's planning to die and take my sister with him." "Miss Bennett, I understand your desperation, but I can't risk my entire team." "Then let me go down alone," Ellie interrupted. "He specifically asked for me. I can walk through the minefield if you guide me from above. That's suicide. My sister will die anyway if I don't do something. At least this way she'll have a chance." While the rescue team debated increasingly desperate options, Lachlan began the final phase of his vengeful plan. He pulled a professional camera and tripod from a reinforced closet. "You know what we're going to do now, Scarlett? We're going to record a message for posterity," he said, setting up the equipment. "I want the whole world to know why we got to this point." He removed her gag, keeping the pistol pointed at her head. "Now, you're going to tell the camera how your sister Ellie destroyed our happy marriage with her lies and manipulation." "I'm not going to say that," Scarlett whispered, her voice hoarse. "Yes, you are. Because if you don't, I'm going to call your father's house and tell him exactly where to find his favorite grandchild, your cousin Robert's 3-year-old daughter." Horror reflected in Scarlett's eyes. Lachlan was threatening an innocent child. "Lachlan, please, that little girl has nothing to do with this." "No one has anything to do with this, according to you. But everyone's going to pay for your family's betrayal." He turned on the camera and began to record. "My name is Scarlett Harrison. I want you to know that my husband Lachlan never mistreated me. Everything you've heard in the news are lies invented by my sister Ellie, who was always jealous of my happy marriage." The words came out of her mouth like forced venom. Every syllable was a betrayal of her own truth, but necessary to protect an innocent child. Meanwhile, Ellie had made a life-changing decision. Without waiting for authorization, she went to the helicopter door. "Bennett, get back in your seat," Detective Williams yelled. "I'm sorry, but I can't stay here while my sister dies." And before anyone could stop her, Ellie jumped. The emergency parachute opened automatically, but the fall was chaotic and dangerous. She landed hard among the trees about 300 meters from the Black House, with a sprained ankle and cuts from the branches. But she was alive, and she was willing to walk through hell to save Scarlett. The thermal detectors in the helicopters located her immediately. Ellie Bennett is on the ground, approximately 300 meters northwest of the target. She appears to be injured but mobile. Lachlan saw the images on his monitors and smiled with satisfaction. "Perfect, just as I planned." He activated an external microphone that amplified his voice throughout the rainforest. "Welcome home, dear sister-in-law. Hope the trip was comfortable. Now, if you want to see your sister alive, you're going to walk very slowly to the front door. Any wrong move will activate the mines." Ellie painfully stood up, using a branch as a makeshift crutch. "Lachlan, let Scarlett go. I'm here, just like you asked. First, walk to the house and tell your police friends to keep the helicopters away, or everything's going to blow." Detective Williams, watching from above, made the most difficult decision of his career, to retreat to 500 meters. Maintain visual contact, but do not interfere until further notice. Ellie began to walk through the jungle night, every step a deadly game of Russian roulette. The moonlight filtered through the canopy, creating deceptive shadows that could hide buried explosives. Step by step, breath by breath, she moved towards the house where her sister awaited a near-certain death. "Very good, Ellie. You're still the brave sister you always were." Lachlan's amplified voice echoed through the trees. "Only 50 more meters." When she finally reached the front door, Lachlan was waiting with a triumphant smile. "Come in slowly, and keep your hands where I can see them." Ellie entered the house and immediately saw Scarlett tied to the chair, with the explosives attached to her chest. Her sister had lost weight. Her face was gaunt from months of terror, but she was alive. "Scarlett," she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "What an emotional family reunion." Lachlan closed the door and activated the electronic locks. "Now the two of us are going to have a very important conversation about the consequences of betraying Lachlan Harrison." The two of us, Lachlan, Ellie corrected. You're not getting out of here alive. Exactly, he said. Very clever, cheap psychologist. None of us are getting out of here alive. But before you die, you're going to spend the next few hours understanding what it feels like to be tortured slowly. Lachlan showed them a table full of instruments he had meticulously prepared. Pliers, knives, acid, lit cigarettes. We'll start with you, Ellie, and your sister is going to watch every second of your agony, knowing it's all her fault for getting you involved. But what Lachlan didn't know was that Ellie had brought something more than desperate courage. Hidden in her boot, she had a small device that Marcus, the journalist, had gotten from his contacts in military intelligence, a GPS tracker with an emergency satellite communication function. And as Lachlan reveled in his torture plans, Ellie discreetly activated the device. The signal instantly reached the command center, where Gemma coordinated a rescue plan that depended on every second. We have an exact location for the 3 victims. First level, northeast sector, approximately 3 meters from the exterior wall. Can the sniper team get a clear shot? Negative. The windows are bulletproof and the walls are too thick. Then we go with Plan B, Gemma decided. A coordinated attack from multiple points, real-time explosive neutralization, and immediate extraction. In the Black House, Lachlan had started to heat up a branding iron. Ellie, I hope you've enjoyed your life so far, because what's coming is going to be worse than any hell you can imagine. But at that exact moment, the sound of helicopter rotors suddenly intensified. What the? Lachlan ran to the monitors. 6 helicopters were approaching from different directions, dropping elite teams who slid down ropes like deadly spiders. You bastards! You promised you'd stay away! Lachlan ran to the main detonator. If you can't follow the rules, then we all die right now. But Ellie, gathering her last ounce of strength, launched herself at him. The struggle was short, but brutal. Lachlan, stronger and trained in combat, quickly overpowered her, but not before she managed to kick the detonator away. You stupid bitch! You just condemned your sister to a much slower death. He took a knife from the torture table and lunged at Scarlett. Now you'll see what happens when someone gets between Lachlan Harrison and his revenge. At that exact moment, the Special Ops team's explosive charges detonated simultaneously at 4 points in the house. The walls collapsed like a house of cards. Smoke and dust filled the air. Screams, gunshots, military orders, and in the midst of the chaos, Scarlett screamed her sister's name. When the smoke cleared 15 minutes later, paramedics were working frantically on 3 bodies on the floor of the shattered house. Lachlan Harrison had died instantly, crushed by a steel beam when the roof caved in. Ellie was unconscious but breathing, with multiple fractures, but out of mortal danger. And Scarlett, finally freed from the restraints and explosives, cried over her sister's injured body, repeating over and over, "Forgive me, Ellie. Forgive me for taking so long to accept your help." The federal court in Sydney was packed with journalists. The Harrison case had exposed a network of corruption that reached the highest levels of government, resulting in the resignations of 3 state premiers, 2 senators, and a high court judge. Scarlett Bennett, now divorced and in therapy, had become a national spokesperson for organizations fighting domestic violence. Her testimony had helped pass stricter laws for the protection of victims and the prosecution of abusers. Silence is complicity in violence, she declared in a speech to Parliament. Every woman who finds the courage to report is saving not only her own life, but the lives of all the women who will come after her. Ellie, who had spent 2 months in physical rehabilitation, now worked as a national coordinator for a government program for the prevention of gender-based violence. The Bennett sisters had turned their pain into purpose. And Margaret, the housekeeper who had the courage to make the call that changed everything, received a government commendation and a lifelong pension in recognition of her bravery. In Scarlett's final words during the presentation of her autobiography, breaking the silence, she said, "My story isn't unique. Thousands of women live the same hell every day that I lived. But I want you to know that there is a way out, that there are people willing to help, and that the true love of a family can be stronger than any threat." Lachlan Harrison believed that money and power made him invincible, but he was wrong. Justice was slow, but it came. And now, every time a woman finds the courage to ask for help, we are honoring the memory of all those who couldn't. The empire built on violence and corruption had crumbled, and from its ashes, a hope had been born that would light the way to freedom for thousands of women. What did you think of the story? Which part impacted you the most? Do you think you would have been able to make the same courageous choice as Ellie and Margaret? Let me know in the comments below. If this story kept you on the edge of your seat, you're going to love the next one.